Hey everyone, it's Jacqueline. Video update time. I am about to head out and go do some shopping and some gym and all that jazz. But I did have an interesting concept, and actually I got this one from my mother. And I was in conversation with someone else this morning, a friend of mine, another trans woman I was in conversation with about this subject. And first of all, I'll go over some personal stuff, and then I'll get into my subject. So everything's going well in my life. I'm chatting with a few people right now, and there's this one guy that I really, really like. He's incredibly busy because he's a medical dermatologist. He's finishing up his boards right now and all that stuff, so his life is chaos. But he's so handsome, and he's incredibly open-minded, and he's a cool guy. Anyway, so I have high hopes for that one. And then I remember telling y'all that I went to my doctor and had the endocrinologist run my work, and so I was incredibly low on testosterone, and this was, when was this, about a year ago? They tested me and they were like, you don't have any. So I've had no testosterone at all for quite a while, probably a few years or more. And so I got off of spironolactone completely, and so last year I was actually doing progesterone, and I really didn't like it because I felt like it just made me emotional and gain weight, and I was pissed off about it. But come to find out, so with estrogen, progesterone, and spironolactone, with my doctor before I go to now, all of those are anti-androgens, and so I was just no testosterone. And it's actually really bad to have no testosterone. And so I voluntarily, about 6 months ago, stopped taking Spiro, just completely. I weaned myself off, because you have to wean yourself off of it. But I completely stopped, and I had this little theory that, because I know progesterone, most of the studies say it's pointless, and that's what a lot of people say, is that progesterone's pointless. And at least that's what the studies say, and from years and years and years. But there's some doctors who say that if you do it with spironolactone, it's actually not a good thing. So Spiro will actually, a lot of trans women, what they find on Spiro is when they very first start transitioning, their breasts will grow and then just suddenly stop, and they won't have any more breast growth. And that's exactly what happened with me. And I've been on hormones now. I medically started transitioning in 2008, February of 2008. And so it was, and all these years I never really had breast growth. And little did I know that it was actually the spironolactone that was stumping it. And so spironolactone is good. Sorry, I was doing my mascara this morning, and I got some on my eyelid. Anyway, so spironolactone is good, I think, initially, but there's some doctors who are like, they just don't do it. So there's actually some that do bicalutamide, which is another one that is an anti-androgen that's supposedly better. And I actually tried that for a minute, but I had no testosterone at all. So technically I shouldn't be taking any anti-androgen or any testosterone blocker specifically. So I got off of Spiro about 6 months ago, and I went in midway, and they tested me, and I had none. It was undetectable, and that was about 3 months ago. And so then I went back in maybe a month ago and got tested, and my testosterone is 3, and for any cis woman it should be around 150. And mine was at the number 3. At first I thought they meant 300, but no, they were like, it's at the number 3. So it's raising incredibly slow. And so we decided to try progesterone one more time. And so I do a low dose at night. And I'm not joking, but it actually kind of pisses me off a bit. But now that I'm off of Spiro and I'm taking progesterone, I've had incredible breast growth. And it makes me so mad after all these years of taking Spiro and then taking progesterone, which did nothing for me with Spiro, because the combination is not good, of those two specifically. And so I was like kind of pissed about it. And so now I'm noticing actual breast growth and no weight gain. Granted, I work out 7 days a week and I'm losing my mind over it, but like I'm so strict and all that stuff. But it kind of makes me mad that I had no idea that Spiro was actually the enemy throughout this whole thing, and most trans women are on it. So anyway, and I don't like the idea of breast implants. I don't want perfect boobs. I just want very natural, just like a B cup, very normal. I have an A cup now, but I just want like a natural set of boobs. And the majority of breast implants I see, I'm just like, it's just not my thing. It never has been. And to me, it looks like slight overkill. And it's more like to look sexy, and that's fine. Anybody can do whatever they want. But for me, I just kind of wanted to look very natural and look like what I would if I was just a cis woman that had small boobs. And so, anyway, yeah, so I'm kind of relieved about that. Anyway, so my topic today, and I'm going to try and do like a 10-minute long video. So, my topic today, which my mother actually brought up, and it was we were talking about minorities and stuff like that, and how wealthy conservative people like helping out minorities in a social way. So what they do is they'll like to give them a helping hand, give them assistance. However, specifically like with trans women, and I've found in a lot of areas where people think they're open-minded and progressive and so on and so forth, or liberal, whatever you want to call it. They think they're open-minded, but what happens is they like to keep you still beneath them, because to them you are still a minority that is, it's like they all want to be like Sandra Bullock in The Blind Side, that movie where she helps out the black kid. That's what they kind of feel like they want to be. And so then they get this like sense of reward that they feel like they're a moral person because they're helping someone out, if that makes sense. So then they feel better about their bullshit. But however, if that person, say a trans woman, starts to become more confident, maybe puts more effort into how they look, more exercise, gets a better body in their terms, but starts to get attention from men, and then these women don't, or it actually usually it's women, funny enough, but they see it as a threat. It's the same thing with like if a man hits on another woman or looks at another woman, instead of like the woman judging their man for it and saying, hey, get your shit together, they look at the woman and see them as a threat. And then they try to pick out the one thing that is their flaw, in quotations, that being trans, or or obese, or something that they think that they would be insecure about, to keep them beneath them. It's a competitive thing. And so with trans people, you have people who are willing to help and be there and be friendly and feel like they're on the moral ground. However, if that trans person becomes opinionated, if they stand their ground, if they become more successful, if they get hit on by more men, women will instinctively see it as a threat. It's just that simple. I mean, not all women, but the majority of women see it as a threat. And that's why I think with like TERFs and a lot of feminism and stuff like that, is they see trans women as a threat to their existence as a woman. So they have to validate themselves by saying, I have a period, I was born a woman, whatever. So this is where my controversial view of this goes. And this is controversial specifically for trans people. So these people in society, the ones making laws and the ones doing stuff like that, they are actually, and what I've found from my experience, are more accepting of non-binary people than they are of binary trans people. And because non-binary people aren't a threat to them. To them, they see it as like, kind of like, well, you're not actually a woman, or you're not actually a man. So they don't see it as a threat. They see you as, it's as simple as like, they'll use your quotations and be like, oh yeah, they and them. It's like that. So they feel quite comfortable. And I can't tell you how many times I've met extra wealthy white conservative people that are like, yeah, my child's non-binary now. And I'm like, okay. But if that child medically transitions, it is Armageddon. They can't take it. They can't handle it. Or if there's another trans person in their presence, that's, like I said, all the stuff before about they feel threatened. And so society actually, and that's the same thing with all these laws they come out with and all of these things, they're expecting you to stand out like a sore thumb. So they're expecting a man in a dress, a bearded man in a dress, to be in the bathroom with their children, and that's a threat to them. What they're not expecting is a binary trans person to be in the bathroom and them not know. And that to them scares the shit out of them, because they are too dumb to even fathom it. So, and the thing is, where it is the positive is that not everyone passes. The majority of people don't pass, and that's totally fine. It's legit. There's no reason to shame anyone for it. However, to them, that's the way they validate these laws, is that they say, look, there's someone who's not that sex or gender in that bathroom. And so, or wherever law-wise that they've made up to validate their, transphobia and whatnot. So society is actually more accepting and wants people to look trans. They want them to look that way so then they can see them. They can point them out and say, look, there's that person. So it's, and I don't personally have an issue with anyone. Anyone can be whatever the hell they want to be. I've come to the point where I've been around some young people that are non-binary, and I went to a trans event in Memphis that had non-binary people there and trans people. Actually, I think there was only two of us. There was one trans man, and me as a trans woman there. The rest, out of almost 20 people, were that all ended up showing up by the end of the night, were majority non-binary people. So I do think that it is in a way like it is more accepting. So when people see someone in the bathroom that doesn't pass, they're like, oh, they're probably non-binary. But when it comes to someone who passes, they see that as a real threat. So they have to invalidate their gender identity and say, well, you're not really a woman and you're not really a man. But non-binary people are no threat to them. They see it as like almost like a novelty. And so it's not the thing is that a lot of people want to feel oppressed. They want to feel like they're a victim and everybody's attacking them. And I totally get it. Like, to me, as a black trans woman in the United States is probably the most intense struggle of minority there possibly can be. And the reason I say that is because it's no secret that the African American community is very unaccepting of trans people. They don't believe that you can transition. I think it's rooted in deep religious backgrounds that are in the deep South. And so you can look like a woman, you can sound like a woman, you can look exactly like a cis woman. It doesn't matter, but you better not call yourself a woman. And so African American trans women struggle with the fact that their own people don't accept them as a woman, and then society on top of it doesn't accept them. And the majority of violence that happens towards black trans women is actually by the people they date. It's the people that find them attractive because they find them, when these men that date them have feelings, emotional feelings for a trans person, then I think we discussed this in my last video. So, people are threatened by trans people that that step up their game, that level up, that have authentic confidence and authentic self-awareness and security. So they have to attack them. It's that simple. Non-binary people are not a threat to them, and that's with the stereotype that non-binary people are they blend in both ways. But the majority of non-binary YouTubers that I've watched are all either on testosterone or estrogen. So these hormones have changed them. And the only thing that's technically kind of fashion-wise is their outfits, their clothing. So there's a lot of non-binary trans people that take estrogen, and to be honest, they look incredibly feminine, but their clothing and their outfits are more masculine, so it makes them look somewhere in the middle there. And as far as sex goes, or the binary spectrum goes. And but to me, I can clearly tell what hormone they have in their system. Like, majority of the time I can tell when there's a trans woman that identifies as non-binary but wears men's clothes and looks butch. And to me, I'm like, you can clearly tell that there's estrogen in that system, that there is changes that have happened. There's breast growth, there's so I do think that being non-binary is totally valid. I think it is a valid identity. I think people should respect the pronouns, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, there are only two hormones, testosterone and estrogen. And whatever is more predominant in your system, you are going to get the features of that sex. Sex meaning testosterone being male, estrogen being female. And you'll start to get those changes as time, depending on how long you're on it. So everyone's valid and everyone's welcome as far as all that goes. But there are kind of rules. There are boundaries to things. And it just goes to show that the majority of society is actually incredibly more accepting of non-binary people. They're confused by it, but they're more accepting of it than binary trans people. That's my whole theory. And if you get too confident, man, they'll take you down. Anyway, I hope everyone's well. I'm going to check out. That's my update for the week and just some thoughts that I had. And I hope everyone's well. Bye.